Welcome to John Gets Games, Episode 4. Today we're going to talk about Tzolk'in, the Mayan Calendar. This is a medium to heavyweight worker placement game with a fascinating gear mechanic. First I'll go over the rules, and then I'll jump into my review.
Alright, so how do we play Tzolk'in? Quick disclaimer, I'm not going to go over every single niche rule in this game. I'm going to do an overview so you have an idea of how it all plays out. Alright, so to start, we have this big, beautiful, quite crowded board with just a bunch of stuff on it, but most notably, this large plastic gear which spins 5 other smaller plastic gears. This is definitely the first wow selling point of the game, and I'll explain that in a little bit. It's mechanically very interesting. In order to win this game, you just need to have the most victory points. We have a track around the board, and if you were to distill this down as much as possible, you're going to be taking these resources, wood, rock, gold, and really cool looking crystal skulls, and you're turning these into victory points. At the end of the game, which is an entire round, like where you go entirely around this gear, all the way around, one tick at a time, each tick is a turn. That's the game. The person with the most victory points wins at that point. Alright, so how do we go about winning? This is a worker placement game. Every single person starts off with 3 people. You can generate more through various means in the game, but we start with 3. And on your turn, you're either going to be placing some number of workers, as many as you can afford or want to place, or you're going to be pulling workers that are already out on the board back into your hand. You can do one or the other, not both at the same time. So I'm going to discuss placement first. Alright, so I've seeded the board with a bunch of opponents' pieces to simulate what this game looks like mid-game. And so where can we put our workers? They primarily go on these 5 outer gears around this main big gear. The only spot that you can place a worker that's not on one of these 5 gears is this first player marker spot over here to take the first player token. I'll explain that in a little bit. So each gear has a set of corn values associated with each middle tooth location, going from 0 to 7 for most of them, and then the blue one over here it goes to 10. It's a little bit bigger. When you place a worker down, you're forced to place it in the cheapest location, so I would not be able to place this guy here because there's an open slot. I would be forced to go here. If I really wanted to, I could put 2 of my workers here to get to this spot, but you always have to go to the cheapest. Alright, so when you're placing workers, there's a cost for the spot that you're placing, like this spot costs 1, and there's also a cost for the number of workers that you're placing on this turn. So if I was just to place the 1 worker, then that would be 1 corn plus 0 corn for placing 1 worker. I've got 4 corn, that's cool. But in this game, you can place more than 1 worker at a time, which you usually want to do. So I might take this second worker and put him over here in this 0 cost spot. Now, of course, this isn't actually 0 cost because when I play my second worker, now the base cost is going to be 1. So my overall corn cost is going to be 1 plus 1 plus 0 is 2 corn. Since there are no more 0 cost slots available on the board and I only have 4 corn, I can't actually place this because if I was to put this in a 1 value location, that bumps me up to the 3rd worker, so that would suddenly be 3 corn plus 1 plus 0 plus 1 is 5, and I can't afford it. So I'm just going to bring this guy back, pay my 2 corn, and that is my turn because I decided I was going to be placing this turn. Or in this case, I was actually forced to because I didn't have any units out on the board yet. So once everybody has taken a turn and the play comes back to the starting player, they're going to take a corn, put it on the current tooth of the calendar, the bigger inner gear, and they're going to move the whole calendar over 1 tooth, which is really neat because when it does that, it moves every single worker on all the outer gears forward once to a more lucrative location, which is the idea of the game. It's all about getting workers in early and not having to pay lots for the good stuff that comes out of it. So the other thing you can do on your turn is you can pull workers back. And when you pull workers back, that's when you execute the action that's associated with them. So for instance, this red one is associated with getting 3 corn, and this blue one right here is associated with this spot right here, and so on around the whole board. I'm going to go over them briefly and try and explain the ideas that are going along here. So this gear is all about getting lots of corn and lots of wood. Corn is good for feeding people, and wood is good for building all sorts of stuff. It's just the cheapest currency. This is the kind of everything wheel. As far as resources are concerned, you can get wood, rock, gold, crystal skulls, and kind of everything at the same time. So that's what this gear is all about. This gear lets you work on your technologies and buildings and monuments for the most part. The way these things work, so these 2 spots right here let you trade in resources to upgrade these science tracks. Odds are good. Some people are going to have some already, but this is the engine building part of the game. It lets you just buff different things. For instance, if green was in this spot right here, then they would take 1 extra corn every time they evaluated a green level gear. And you notice the coloration wise, these are the only green ones on the board, and so that means all of these technologies apply to that gear. For instance, down here, if green was on here, then every time you build a building, which has to do with the yellow and red gears by the yellow and red icons, you're going to get an extra coin. So this just is they kind of fall on top of each other. There's different engine building you can do here, and the main way you advance these is through this. These 2 spots right here let you build buildings, and the second one lets you build monuments. And these are just one-shot things that let you get stuff. So you spend 2 wood, you go in that spot, you pull the guy back, spend 2 wood, and boom, now you get to move up once on this top technology track for free because it's got little X's on the top, etc. There's just all sorts of stuff that's going on in here that, at least in the top row, that helps get your engine going and whatnot, but they're just one-time use for the most part. These yellow ones help you feed your workers. I'll explain that later. These ones down here are endgame victory point monuments. They just get you points for doing stuff, and I'll go over that in a little bit. We have this little icon here, which kind of shows a little yellow, and green, and a red dude. Those are the 3 gods that are associated with these 3 temples, the brown, yellow, and green. This is one way to get points and resources. I'll explain what that means in a little bit, but this is just a way to move your tokens up on these temple tracks to get various other good stuff. The yellow track lets you do all sorts of stuff. For instance, here you can spend 3 corn to move up on the temple track. Here you can trade resources for resources like crazy. This is the main way that you're going to pull in new workers, so you can go up to more workers, and various other different things you can do, build buildings with corn, etc. Notice every single gear has these 2 last spots that are wilds. When you pull a unit off of either of these 2 spots, it lets you evaluate any spot below it. And that brings me to a good point. If, say, when red pulled this off, they're going to execute this spot right here. They could choose to execute actions that are lower on the track, so for instance this one, but it's going to cost 1 corn per time you go down. So for a better example, if blue here really wanted to go to the market, he could pull this off and pay 2 corn to evaluate this spot. So you don't always want to go up higher, you want to time everything correctly. Lastly is kind of the end game gear, the Chichen Itza. This one, when you pull a unit off, you're actually going to be placing crystal skulls, which you will have had in your supply already, and you get to place them in the spot. And then you get points, and you go up temple track, and various other things, and then this skull stays there for the rest of the game, so that this blocks different teeth on this track. So Chichen Itza, pretty interesting. It's an endgame scoring spot. So for the most part, that is how the pulling workers back. You can do it in various orders. Pull something to get resources, to pull another one to build a building, etc. There's lots of combining that you can do with that. Now I'd like to talk about the starting resources in this game. It's a pretty cool mechanic. Instead of giving you a certain set of resources at the beginning that you don't have a choice over, you were given randomly 4 little tokens, and you choose 2 of them in order to evaluate, and you throw all of them back in the box, but it tells you what you get to start with. So for instance, if I chose these 2, I would start with a 4th worker from the beginning of the game, and I get 9 corn and 1 rock. Or I could do these 2 here, get 5 corn, 1 gold, go up once on the brown track over here, and then get 2 technology advances in the same technology. So that's pretty good. So if I was yellow, I could have moved from here over to here, and then from the beginning of the game, I'm going to get extra corn and extra victory points for building buildings. This, if I did this, would definitely indicate how I'm going to be playing this game. I'm probably going to be trying to build lots of buildings because that's the way I'm starting. But you could mix and match as much as you like. It's a very interesting decision. One other key thing is that if you are the starting player, it's random in the beginning of the game. You're not going to need that much corn to place your units in the cheap spots because the board's going to be empty. So maybe you do go after this with less corn and just go for your engine. Versus if you are the last player, then all these good spots are going to be full. You're going to need lots of corn to put any guys down. So now this tile might be looking really, really nice to you. So you get to just go back and forth and balance all these things out. It's a very interesting decision that you get to make. Another mechanic in this game, I said I'd come back to, was the starting player mechanic. And this is interesting. Remember I said that when the year goes forward, you're going to be placing a tooth, and then you go forward, and then you're going to place a tooth, and you're going to go forward, and you keep doing this, and at some point, someone's going to say, hey, that's a lot of corn on the gear, and I've been going last or second to last, and that's really bumming me out, so I'm going to now choose to place my worker over here on the spot. What happens the moment you take this spot is you get all this corn. You can't use it this turn to pay for the placement of that, but you get it for the future. Yay! And then once everyone takes a turn, then you're going to get to be the starting player, which is great. You get first choice. Well, it's sometimes great. Sometimes you don't want to be starting player. There's a lot of different strategies in this game, but oftentimes you want to be. And it also means that you're the one who has control of the wheel, and you can do a double move, which means you can move 2 teeth in a row, once per game, for the most part, and you flip your player board over to the dark side to say you can't double move again. And this can really mess up everybody's plans. So taking this can be very interesting. Suddenly people have to pay corn to come back to the thing they wanted to do. It's a very interesting mechanic for the start player. The last mechanic I'd like to talk about are the different seasonal spots in this game where you do a feeding and a scoring round. So we begin at teal, then we're going to progress over to brown, and then so on to teal, brown, and then back to this teal for the end of the game. When you do both brown and teal, you're going to be feeding your workers 2 corn each. If you happen to have a farm, then this building feeds 1 worker every time, so that's nice. But it's one thing to keep in mind when you're taking new workers is you're going to have to feed them. So that's an interesting balance to make because that worker is going to get you more resources, but it costs you resources. And then the temples, this is where the temples come into play. When you do the brown level, this is when you're going to get resources. So for instance, if blue here was up here at the 8, then they would get 2 rock. Red would get a gold, and green, blue, and red would all get a wood. You get all the resources that are below where you're at when we do these 2 brown locations. When we do the teal, which is going to be halfway through the game and at the very end of the game, you're going to score the victory points for the temples. So in this case, blue is at the top, you get 8 points, red would get 4, green would get 3, and blue would get -2 down here. Like there's a lot of points to be had here. Interesting note about the top here is when you go to the top, you can be the only one there. You can't share. And entering this top location is the only way, if you had been on the brown side, to flip it back to the light side to potentially do the double spin again. So that's the only way to do it. It happens pretty rarely. Once we come back around to the beginning tooth, then the game is over, and we score victory points, which you pretty much cash in your resources, and then you do your monuments here. These can be quite a bit of points at the end, and as you can see, they are quite costly to build. This one lets you score your victory points on your temples again. This one gets you points for every brown building you've built. This gets you points for every crystal skull that happens to be out. The various sorts of things, and once these are bought, they don't fill in, so you know what all the options are going to be, unlike these buildings, which will fill in as time goes on. Halfway through the game, you're going to go to this second stack of buildings, which are similar but different, not really worth discussing. And then you see who has the most points, and that person's the winner. I'm going to start my review by discussing the things I really like about Tzolk'in. To begin with, the artwork is fantastic in this game. Every single part of the board you look at has great detail, from little people on a path, people harvesting corn, and we got a temple being built. Just really, really beautiful, vibrant game. The gears have great molded detail in them, and also they just turn really, really well. It's very, very smooth, which I really like. It's a very well-produced game. From a mechanical standpoint, these gears are awesome. The way it makes a seemingly simple turn where you're either placing workers down or pulling them back up again, and then adds this time element, the complexity just explodes. It's really, really cool. Each individual turn of this game I really, really like. Just thinking about the puzzle of how I want to get to where I want to go and where I need to put my workers to do that, and do I have enough corn to do that? Well, for instance, I'm going to pretend I'm yellow. I got 4 workers here and 2 are out, so I have all 6 workers out. And in 2 turns, I really want to build this monument, which is going to give me 18 victory points at the end of the game because of my 6 workers. But I need 3 gold and 3 wood to do that. I've got a gold and 3 wood. So now I can look at the board and analyze the situation and realize that if I place my workers right here and here, I'll be able to pull it off. Because when 2 turns happen later, and I have my little tech track here, well, I'm going to get 1 extra wood for pulling this guy off. So I'll pull this guy off, take this wood shit here, and now that's going to get me 5 wood. Put my 5 wood over here, and now the next thing that I know is that that's only going to get me 1 gold, but I need 2 more. So I'm going to pull this off, which lets me go up 2 tech tracks. So I got 1, 2. That's going to cost me 5 resources. Well, I just got 5 wood, so I'm going to put those 5 wood back here. Now what that allows me to do is every time I pull a worker back to get gold, I get another one. So I come here, I'm going to get 2 gold for that. Put those into my pile, and I'm also going to get 2 corn. Well, I would have spent 5 corn earlier. I get 2 corn back. And now finally I get to pull off my monument, because I pull this guy back here. He lets me buy a monument. This monument costs 3 gold and 3 wood. I have 3 gold and 3 wood. I get to buy this thing, and all this stuff goes back to the bank, and that's kind of like a big turn. And I've got the thing I needed, everything kind of worked out, and turns like that are just really fun. Working towards those, and then you pull this off, to pull this off, to pull that off. It's really, really fun making all that stuff work. So now I'm going to shift into the things I'm a little bit lukewarm about this game. And the first one, as you could probably imagine, is that analysis paralysis can definitely creep into this game. It depends on the people you're playing with, but there is so much to think about on each turn, and I really enjoy thinking about it, but I enjoy it a little bit less when every other player is also taking their time to really plan ahead and figure out their turns. This game can drag a little bit sometimes, depending on the players you're playing with. And you could be thinking on other people's turns about what you're going to do, but so much can change based on where they put their workers that you really can't do that much planning ahead. Also going into that is the number crunching, the corn crunching, figuring out the number of corn for the number of players, the number of workers you put down, plus the spots that you placed them on the board, and making sure you have enough corn. And okay, well maybe you're going to do a setup turn so that in a couple turns you'll have enough corn to do your mega turn. So now you're thinking about turns ahead and ahead, and you kind of need to do that to be competitive in the game. The person that wins is the person who's going to plan ahead the best. Unfortunately, sometimes that person also takes the longest turns, which can be a little bit frustrating. The one other thing that's a little bit annoying to me about this game is that the monuments, they look really, really similar to the buildings. I don't know why they didn't make them graphically more differentiated. It doesn't really impact the gameplay much. And I guess one other thing to mention that can kind of be a potentially an issue with this game is that it is very busy for new players. First time sitting down, especially people who are not used to heavy games, they might be a little bit intimidated by the board. That's kind of a minor thing though. It's happened once or twice, but it's not that big of a deal. So now I need to shift into the 3 things that I dislike about this game. Each of the 3 things individually are not that big of a deal, but all together it makes a problem. So the first thing that I have a problem with this game is how the board is very samey. The buildings and the monuments are going to be different each game, and the starting tiles that you choose at the beginning are going to be different each game. Everything else is the same. So the gears are always in the same positions. The technology, this in particular, the technology is always the same. The temples are always the same. And that does not make a game bad. Some of my favorite games have a very samey board. But when you combine that situation with the second issue that I have with this game, being that there are pretty much 3 paths to victory. There's the skull strategy, where you put skulls down on Chichen Itza. There's going heavy on temples from a very early standpoint, so each of the quarter and halfway points of the games, the scoring of resources and victory points, you get lots of points there. And the other way is to go hard and heavy on buildings and monuments, getting corn and extra victory points and extra resource discounts. There's these 3 things. So we got the skulls, we got the temples, and we got the buildings. And you're going to have to pick one of those. If the game rewarded hybridization, doing 2 things, that'd be fine. But it doesn't. You have to specialize. If you do a little bit of skulls and a little bit of buildings, odds are very strong that you are going to lose to someone who just did temples, for instance. Specialization is the way this game is played out. So that I have a problem with that. I like a game to allow me to be flexible mid-game. If I'm trying to do something and just people are blocking me too much, I want to be able to shift gears, and do something else and still be competitive. And you really can't stay competitive if you change your strategy from the beginning. You pretty much, your very first turn, you're deciding one of these 3 things, and if you don't just go hard on that the whole game, you might still enjoy yourself, but if you want to win, it's going to be rather unlikely that that's going to happen. And this leads into the third issue I have with this game, all 3 of these things combined, and that is that if multiple people choose to do one path, those people are at a severe disadvantage to the person who happens to not take a path with competition. So for instance, in a 4-player game, there's pretty much guaranteed that 2 of these people are going to pick the same path, since there's 3 main paths to victory. And that means if 2 people are trying to do the Crystal Skulls path at the end of the game, they're at a severe disadvantage to the person who just does temples. Because they're going to be competing, they're going to be getting each other's way, and when you're trying to block someone from skulls, you're not actually blocking them from temples or buildings that much. And likewise, if you have multiple people going for the temples, they're going to be all in each other's way for progressing up these tracks, and if there's just one person dropping skulls like crazy on Chichen Itza, they are at a very large chance to win the game. Definitely an advantage. And so these 3 things, really, they combine to equal the reason I don't play this game very much anymore. The samey board by itself, that's fine, but that combined with these 3 different ways to victory, and if you happen to... So, you take these tokens at the beginning of the game, and you kind of decide what your path is going to be. If I decide to do these 2, well, now I'm probably going to go heavy on corn, and that's going to allow me the flexibility to probably get lots of workers and maybe go for the building strategy. This person right here who takes a skull from the beginning, they're probably going to be going Chichen Itza. So you pretty much decide 2 out of your 4 at the beginning of the game, and you just commit to it, and you're kind of hoping that no one else decides to do the same strategy as you, because it's going to really hurt your chances to win the game. There's still fun blocking, there's still lots of interesting decisions to be made, but having the person who's maybe just lucky enough to be doing a strategy that no one else decides to do in that game, oftentimes be the victor, it's a problem. I've played this game 7 times, and my excitement is at a very steep curve. I was so excited the first couple times I played, and then it just dropped down to pretty much deciding that there's other games I'd rather play almost always because of the lack of flexibility being a good thing. All this together, I think it's definitely a good game. I think everyone who enjoys medium to heavy games should play this at least a couple times. But as far as long-term replayability, I played 7 games. I'll probably play it another couple times before it ends up leaving my collection, but it's definitely not something I'm excited to play anymore.